Okay, so ISIS apparently decided to take pictures of themselves destroying Sumerian artifacts, Sumerian being Anunnakis. Now, that's really weird because obviously it's something that they really wanted us to see, but I can't see why that would have affected them, whether or not Anunnakis were here or not. But eyewitnesses have said that these ISIS people had headphones on, headsets on, and people were saying that it was actually the Black Ops doing it, secret Black Ops, to destroy evidence of the Anunnaki. Now, even the people that worked in the museum said that when the ISIS came in, they actually only stole real artifacts from Sumeria, not the fake ones that look real in the museum. So why would ISIS do all that? They probably didn't. It probably was the Black Ops destroying evidence. I'm just going to address the people that say there's hardly any information out there. The whole point of why I'm doing this is because there's no information out there, or hardly any information. And the reason why there isn't is because over the years it's been suppressed. If you believe the governments are squeaky clean and they'll tell you everything, then I've got some fresh air I can sell you. But they do hide things. Now, there's these new sites popping up, fact-checking sites, which debunk things. And I'm slightly worried that these might be fake sites that are designed to make whatever you say, whether it's, you've seen a UFO or whatever, and debunk you. Now, there was a guy called Bob Lazar back in the 80s who allegedly said that he'd worked on a reverse engineering a UFO, crashed UFO. And everything that he said was debunked, but now it looks like he's actually was telling the truth. So I'm not getting paid for this. I'm not going to go and do your research. I've done 30 years of it. If you don't believe me, that's fine. Okay, so before I carry on with the in-depth Anunnaki, I have to address the debunkers. Now, this person here is an archaeologist called Sarah Kroenig. And just listen to what she says, and I'm going to go through where she's wrong. And I'm sorry, I have a little saying that I hate thick people, and thick people are the people that's not prepared to open their eyes. Now, she's totally blinked because the actual title of this video is Aliens Built the Pyramids and Other Absurdities. Okay, so let's go through this and make her look absurd.
That aliens from the planet Nibiru had come to Earth and established the ancient Sumerian culture in Mesopotamia. I have these conversations.
So someone had mentioned that to her, and
a lot. On planes, in bookstores, and in bars, people want to talk with me about pseudo-archaeology.
Yeah, not really pseudo, it's actually real archaeology, but you're not prepared to open your eyes.
Something that seems like archaeology, but isn't.
Or you're paid.
It involves making wild and unproven,
or you're paid to debunk this kind of stuff,
claims about the human past. Things like aliens built the pyramids.
Okay, so she's gone for the picture there of the Greys, which we know the Anunnaki are not like the Greys. The Anunnaki are actually, well, just like us really, or we're like them. So there's a first mistake there. Clearly she doesn't know much about Sumeria. And these tablets are in Sumeria, which is Mesopotamia. So wrong on that account, love.
Or survivors from the lost continent of Atlantis invented hieroglyphic writing. Now, most of us know that claims like these are unfounded.
Well, they're not unfounded actually, because you've got the Dead Sea Scrolls that actually talk about where they landed, who they were, and actually covers it. So, and that's the Book of Enoch, which is made up of all these different things. So, yeah, the proof's there, to be honest with you. So they're not unfounded. Otherwise, if you're disregarding the Dead Sea Scrolls, then you have to disregard the Bible.
And frankly, absurd. Yet they're everywhere.
Yes, they're everywhere because it's freaking fact, you numpty.
They're on TV shows, in movies, and in books. Think of the History Channel series Ancient Aliens.
So where she was just talking about the planet Nibiru, look, this is from NASA's own website here. Caltech researchers have found mathematical evidence suggesting that there may be a Planet X. Now, if you remember my very first video, I mentioned Planet X is the So the last video I was just talking about this woman here. So it's not worth carrying on whatever she says, because obviously if she's disregarded the facts, then whatever else she carries on and tries to lie about is just nonsense and lies. So let's go to another one here. So this video here, colossal cranium. So let's have a listen to what he says.
The ancient alien theories have been widely criticized and rejected. Why? Because their methods are completely backwards from how scientific facts are found.
Okay, so going widely rejected. Now, actually, it's widely rejected by people that don't want it. So in other words, the Smithsonian, the Rockefellers, any institute that's funded by them. You see where I'm going with that. And now, as for the proof, we've got here these skulls, and as we know, these skulls are not boarded, head boarded or head bound. These actually have different features to a human skull. So there's a bit of a proof there.
Instead of looking at all the data and evidence and providing proof.
Okay, let's look at the data and evidence of... Now, look, this is the evidence that they give us. The pyramids of Giza, like Egyptian pyramids, came blah 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 before them. They were royal tombs, a final resting place. Okay, no bodies were found in any pyramids across the world, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pyramids across the world, believe it or not. Not one body. However, the tombs that look like tombs, the sort of place that you find Tutankhamun, were tombs. So when they try and debunk it, they use this kind of crap here that basically says it was tombs. So straight away, they're wrong. So they're following the wrong information in the first place, this video here. And if you're just talking about the pyramids alone, look at this. Even Sky News finally admits that the Great Pyramid of Giza can collect and concentrate electromagnetic energy. Now, we've probably mentioned this before on my videos anyway, where the power, there's significant power that comes from actually the top of the pyramid, and some of these still have it. The Bosnian pyramid does, where it's obviously a power source. So if Sky News is talking about that, I know Sky, we can't trust Sky, but the fact that they've actually even allowed that sort of information out there, then you've got these characters here that just follow the narrative. I know I'm going on about debunking, but
ancient alien enthusiasts piece together stories, often from very old and very unreliable sources.
Well, no, actually, the old information is actually from the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Book of Enoch. The firmament, basically, from what I understand, they say, people that say the flat earth says that this firmament is a solid object, impenetrable. NASA's been lying to us for since they sent rockets up. They've made fake claims that which now turn out to be possibly true, that there's nothing outside of this dome, and up here, well, outside of the dome, they say there's nothing, but of course nothing is something, and therefore it's space. So when they send a rocket up and they drop a pencil and it floats, that was just all made up by NASA way back, and they have to carry on making that lie now. But we know with our own vacuum chambers, etc., that there is such a thing as anti-gravity, and it would float. So it's a lot of aggro for NASA to have gone through to continuously lie right back then, and not just NASA but other countries, to lie and say that there's I don't know, I'm just struggling to comprehend their thoughts on this. To lie and say all this time, I would have, if I was lying to the people, I wouldn't have said, oh, you know, you drop a pencil and it's going to float. That's a lot of aggro to go through to lie. But also, like, for example, I've been told that the flat earthers believe with the dome that our GPS satellite signals that we get are actually on helium balloons. So instead of sitting up there in orbit, they're actually inside this dome on helium balloons, which we know there's wind that blows around and GPS needs to be accurate, and I don't know, just so anyway. So let's have a look what the information where these flat earthers get this from. So let's be honest, it goes all the way back to the Book of Enoch, because the Book of Enoch predates the Bible. So let's have a quick look now. So this is chapters from the Book of Enoch. I'll just read out a couple of bits. Now, if you, as I've said before, if you replace the word heaven with space, in other words, the space where Star Trek happens up there in space, the Bible and everything else makes so much more sense. So it says, I saw the four winds which bear the earth and the firmament of the space, which is space above. I'll just go back to this bit down here because I saw the winds on the earth carrying the clouds. I saw the paths of the angels. Now we know angels is messengers, which is Anunnaki. So I saw the path of the Anunnaki, in other words, the route that they're taking. I saw that at the end of the firmament of the space above. I saw the end of the firmament of the space above. Now all that is really, let's be honest, is it's our ozone layer, and they came in rockets. They didn't come in anti-gravity machines, so they would have struggled to get through this our ozone layer. And I actually need your help on this one. So I've got a theory that no one else has ever mentioned, and you lovely smart people will let me know whether you think this idea is actually correct or not. So we're going back to the firmament. Now I think the firmament is just basically our atmosphere. So the Anunnaki came in their ships, and we know they're rocket ships because it says it in the Bible, basically, with the loud thunder and the fire behind, as opposed to anti-gravity. So when they hit our atmosphere, they started to burn up, obviously, because it's well, unless it's anti-gravity, you'll end up doing this kind of thing. Now their own planet obviously had dwindled in atmosphere, and we know that because they came here to mine for gold to spread in their atmosphere to help protect it. So they could quite easily leave their planet without having this atmosphere issue, but when they hit Earth, they wrote about how hard it was to try and get through. And of course we've equated that now as an invisible dome over Earth, and then we've got people talking about hollow Earth, flat Earth. So Halley's Comet has a orbit of 75 to 76,000 years. However, we only see it in the night sky for a couple of days, I think it is. Now, I asked someone, a flat earther, I said, well, where does Halley's Comet go? And they said, yeah, they don't really know. Because obviously, if it takes 75,000 years and we only see it for 2 or 3 days, technically it should only be a week before we see it again. So it goes off somewhere and it goes out further. So obviously if there's a dome, it goes outside the dome. And if there's, because the flat earthers say there's no space outside, so that kind of poo-poos that idea, I think. And also when people watch rockets go up, like Elon Musk's, what do? Just watch it go up, hit the firmament and come back down? No, they watch it go up, up, up. You don't see it come back down, which means it's getting outside of our atmosphere, getting out into space. But my point here is Zecharia had landing ports, spaceports, according to Zecharia Sitchin. Now, imagine, so this is where the spaceport was, according to Sitchin, and this is where the Great Pyramid is. Imagine if the pyramid was also designed to put power, some sort of energy, because we know that actually produces energy. Imagine that energy going up into the ozone or up into to our atmosphere and actually creating a hole which would allow the Anunnaki rockets to go through it a lot easier than burning up as they do now. So it's not too far from there, and we know the rocket ships had wings because of the Vimanas, the images. Okay, so the Book of Enoch, let's cut straight to the chase. They were totally aware, so Enoch was a scribe, they were totally aware of spirits. So look, chapter here, though ye were holy, spiritual, living the eternal life. So they was aware of eternal life for the spirits, not just their own longevity of life. Now we know that they lived a long time, but eternal is something that we attribute to spirits, and there's the word there. So I want to try and show you the difference between spirits and angels, because in the Book of Enoch there is a difference. Obviously everyone's mixed it all up and said the spirits are angels and they come down, but I'm trying to show you that they know the difference between a spirit and an angel. So if you just bear with me over the next couple of videos. Okay, so here, then I wrote out their petition. and the prayer in regard to their spirits and their deeds individually, and in regard to their... Okay, so I found a guy on the internet debunking Zecharia Sitchin, and it's actually a person that I sent a message to probably 15 years ago, because he had wrote back then on his website, this was his words, princely seeds was the description of the Anunnaki, not those from heaven came to earth, as possibly suggested by Sitchin. However, a few other people has also gone along similar to what Sitchin's saying, with different variations of those who came to Earth. But this chap was the only one that mentioned that I could see that was saying about princely seeds. Now, I sent him a message back then saying, you do realise that you've actually agreed with Sitchin, meaning that they have to have been Anunnaki, or they have to have been alien, because they were the two princes, Enlil and Enki, which makes sense if you're going to call the Anunnaki princely seeds. And we know from historical texts that their father wasn't around until way later. So they had to have come from somewhere. They couldn't have just appeared. So you see where I'm going with that. If the records show, the true texts show that Enlil and Enki turned up here, then their father wasn't here, so they did come from heaven. So I can see why Sitchin. But here's that chap. Have a watch.
When he makes his translations, like for example, when he translated the word Anunnaki, right? Now, what did I told you that the word means of royal seed, okay? But he... Okay,
now there's a contradiction there, because when I sent him the message, he said princely seeds. That was... Anyway, he replied, but it was just waffle, and he knew that I was smarter than him, so forgive me for that. But let's just look at this chap here anyway. There he is, David, Dr. David, I won't even pronounce his name. Now, he actually used to work for universities, and one of them was University of California. And those that know my videos know that I do a little bit more research. Turns out our friends, the Rockefeller Foundation, funds that same university, so there's no way he was going to be saying there's aliens, because the Rockefeller Foundation do not want people to know. David does, the one of the sons wanted people to know, but as a whole, the Rockefellers don't want people to know. So when you add the Rockefeller in with a guy that's debunking Sitchin, you know Sitchin was probably more accurate than this guy. That's my opinion. Hopefully you tell me what your opinion is. Thanks. Aphrodite was also called Ishtar and Iana. Now, when Iana found out about Marduk trying to take over the planet, she got angry, and she found out that he was also rebuilding this sky tower. And when they all found out, when all the gods found out that he was rebuilding the sky tower, they allowed Iana to go and basically kill people, which was quite unheard of, really. So she went with her weapons, and it doesn't actually describe what weapons, but obviously it was bad, because in the ancient stone text they talk about blood absolutely filling the rivers. So she went to town, probably with the help of her brother Utu and another brother. Marduk done a runner, and everything settled back down, but Enlil still wanted to prove that it was his time, the time of the bull. So he got his son Ninurta to go around and build these round stone structures that look like, yes, Stonehenge. Marduk decided to have another pop at taking over the planet, and even after what Iana had done with those humans. So he Marduk managed to get more humans to start following him and started taking over more lands, etc, etc. And it got to a point where he was telling them to build walls and rivers and canals, etc, so that his armies would have the infrastructure behind them to keep pushing forward. Now, you've probably heard the ancient story of Jericho. Now, obviously, Marduk wasn't always there and didn't give him any technology, because he didn't really have that much technology. However, his brothers and so on, the other gods, etc., who had humans down there fighting, gave the humans this device to help bring the walls down. And yes, it was a sound device, the same sound device that could move the blocks to make the pyramids in the first place. And thus you have the walls of Jericho brought down, and it was Marduk's lot that was behind the wall. Lies, truth, infamy. They've got it infamy. Now, the reason why I say lies is because of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Now, anything that I say here on in regarding the Emerald Tablets of Thoth do take with a large dollop of salt. And the reason why I say that is because, let's, for example, look at this. It was supposedly written in Arabic and then translated to Latin. So we never actually get to see the original tablet, so we don't actually know, but we assume it's translated because all we see is the Latin version. However, there was a person called Dr. Michael Durrell who supposedly translated it from the tablets from Atlantean into English, which is pretty impressive because there's no other, as far as I'm aware, there's no other Atlantean language out there, and that then means that he would have been able to magically translate without a Rosetta Stone or something like that. So that's pretty impressive, and that's sad because there's a website out there or YouTube channel that deals with all these subjects, and unfortunately they quoted that the texts were in Atlantean originally, which unfortunately, in my opinion, is a big no-no. Now, the reason why it's another no-no is, and I'll tell you that after this quick interlude. Now, TikTok, I've got 600 plus videos at the moment, and it's really hard for you lot to scroll down to watch from number one because people have said it is. Now, if you like my videos, then when you go to your profile, you just click this button here, and it brings up all the ones that you've liked, so you don't have to scroll all the way down, and you know which ones you've watched. So it will show you the last liked video there, the one that before that. So if you've watched 10 of mine, for example, the 10th one would be here, the 9th one, and so on. So it's a lot easier to find. Okay, so going back to the Tablets of Thoth. Now, supposedly, Thoth was an Atlantean, but we know Thoth as Ningazida, which was an Anunnaki. So if he did go to Atlantis and then Atlantis sank, which is written in the tablets, and that he actually got warned, I'm going to give spoiler alerts here, but they were warned to leave Atlantis, which is exactly what I say already in my other previous videos about Atlantis. But he supposedly wrote these tablets while he was Hermes. Now, if you know, Hermes was the Greek god. Now, why didn't he write them in Greek? Why didn't he write them in the Egyptian? Why did he, and why not cuneiform? Why Atlantean? There's a huge time difference between Atlantis and Greece. So I struggle. So keep watching because I will keep going through the book. I had someone say on a previous video that the Emerald Tablets of Thoth are in a museum. So these are the unbreakable, physics-defying, hardest rock that known to man on this planet are sitting in a museum. And I kind of replied saying, well, if you think that, I've got some fresh air I can tell you. Military would not allow... Okay, if you don't know why the military would be interested in these and just letting them sit in a museum, then my videos are probably not for you. But they also say that there's more than 10 tablets, because I said 10. There's translations work out more than 10, but originally there was 10. So now Thoth himself supposedly in the book come from Atlantis. Now I'll cover that because I'm running out of time in the next video. Unfortunately, this person believes that this was debunked in 2013. They haven't obviously done their homework. Feel free to watch my videos and learn a little bit more, or go to outruehistory.co.uk and learn even more. Now, this little alien I've done videos on, and it's only got 10 ribs instead of 12, and the cranial plate's different to humans, and jaw's different, and basic eye socket's different, the whole long list. So let's have a look what they say about it. So it says here, DNA not only shows that she was human, but she belonged to the local population. So human DNA. Now, a banana has human DNA. A fruit fly has human DNA. Basically, everything has human DNA. In fact, it's not human DNA. It's just us being big-headed. It's a generic DNA. Anyway, but let's go along. And she belonged to the local population of Chile. So that means chances are she's not going to cross the ocean to go somewhere else, is she? Little tiny little thing like that, bless. Well, actually, in Egypt, they found 2 mummified versions of the same skeleton, both again female, and they have come up with this concocted story that they believe it was Tutankhamun, who was a kid himself, that they're his children, and they were fetuses, and even though they don't look like anything like a human, etc., etc., and that's why they were mummified. So that you can see mainstream here clutching at straws. But let's have a look at why the original. So now these have got to be fake as well if they're not, if people think they're fake. But let's have a look at who actually debunked it. So this was a guy called Gary Nolan, and he worked for the Stanford University in California. Let's have a look at Gary. There he is. He's an upstanding fellow, so I'm sure he wouldn't. He would tell us the truth, wouldn't he? Because well, who's funding the place that he worked at? Let's have a look. So Stanford University. Oh, got some funding. Wow. Okay, that's pretty cool. From oh, what's that at the top? Rockefeller Foundation. Weren't they the ones that pay for money for the Cairo Museum, the Smithsonian, other institutions? And they basically, it appears when you look deep into it, they don't want us to know our true history. Because you'll find out that the Smithsonian actually destroyed giant skeletons, and that's why people say, oh, there's no such thing as giant skeletons. They actually destroyed them and had a court case over it. So when you put all of this together, it is not debunked, because clearly they're actually saying that it was a real skeleton just because it's got DNA in it that matches fruit flies. Ignore the word human there. So what do you think? You think, once again, ourtruehistory.co.uk has boom dropped the mic? Thank you. I'd rather trust a professor who's funded in a university by the Rockefellers than some TikTok guy who thinks he knows it all. So I'm actually talking about here mummification from archaeologists. Now, they seem to believe now that they found the oldest known mummification, which is now 8,000 years ago. But the problem is, when you actually read on, they're actually just looking at photographs that were 60 years ago. So they're now ascertaining that the photographs of the images depict a mummification from 8,000 years ago, which is basically just a guess, let's be honest. And the reason why I say about the who do you trust is because if you watch my other videos, you'll see that recently archaeologists in Egypt have now said, oh yeah, mummies are probably 1,000 years before we actually thought they were. So when you keep getting misinformation, who do you trust? Well, I hate liars. So this website here, The Spectator, says proof at last that the Great Pyramid wasn't built by aliens. Now, wait for it. Their proof is an old bit of papyrus, which basically says that it was a logbook, really, which I've mentioned in previous videos, that says that the Egyptians used denial and they moved blocks backwards and forwards. That's it. They do not talk about the pyramids. There's no mention of it. However, this website here is saying that they're talking about how they lifted the block, raising them up so that they could actually make ramps, etc., etc. The papyrus doesn't say any of that, so they've added all this crap. And then, wait for it, this is, you know, when someone's trying to debunk things, it's when they talk about things like little green men here. Look, little green men or Atlantean speculations is both a failure and an overuse. So basically they're trying to knock people, even though technically they... Look into my genuine crystal skull eyes. Genuine? I thought these were debunked. Well, it's not really debunked. What it was a guy worked for a university, looked at the skull under a microscope and saw tiny little scratches and said these were tool marks. Now, this is thousands of years old, so if you've got a few dings on it, that's fine, no problem. But of course, once he said it was scratches, he then said it was tool marks, in which case, therefore, it's not thousands of years old, even though technically someone would have had to use tools on it to make it. But hey, he now decides that those scratches are modern tools, which then makes the guy sound like a complete nut. Well, it turns out where he actually works was, if you watch my previous videos, was for a university that was funded by the Rockefellers. And if this was fake, if you don't know anything about the Rockefellers, go and watch my videos. You'll understand why he's debunked. So this is genuine. But if it wasn't genuine, why the hell is it in the British Museum if they thought it was fake? So let's go on to why my opinion of what it was actually created for. Now there's more of these, and yes, they were in the film Indiana Jones. I had people saying, no, they're not real. They're from a film called Indiana Jones. No, the Indiana Jones copied these. Right. Anyway, so that's that. So my take on what they were actually created for, and I'm the only person that's thought this. So if I'm right, once again, our true history, once again, I have to say that has knocked it out of the park. So. There's a spell that was a genuine spell called necromancy, and it was many, many centuries old. And generally what they did was they had a skull, a human bone skull, and they would put oils and certain particular oils all around it. And then there would be smoke going all around the skull, and this would be done at night. Watch my other videos to find out why everything's done at night. Now, a spirit from the underworld would come up and make sounds through this skull. Now, my take on it is, if you know anything about glass is, there we are, you know that the glass has a better resonance frequency than bone, which is why glass is upside down used on Ouija boards. So if you go back to the crystal skull, and you find out that not only has it got crystal in it, it's also got quartz, which is even better frequency. In my opinion, these were actually used, especially when you work out the locations of them, these were used to summon the dead and talk through them, which would explain why sometimes people see things inside the eyes or inside the actual thing, and sometimes even projected out from them. So that's my take on it. It's a genuine thing, necromancy. So there we go, outer history. Look at this carving in the Egyptian Museum. At first glance, it looks like a little alien. However, you'll realise the body parts there do seem to have dwarfism, which they also had gigantism, and that's understandable because the Anunnaki were 8 to 12 foot tall, breeding with humans, which were about 5 foot tall, and we ended up with a mismatch of sizes, which is why we got the Nephilim. But the skull there could be mistaken for the Star Child skull, if anyone knows what that is. Now, I have actually done a big, long video on my Patreon page about the Star Child. Now, I know the original owners of it, after Lloyd Pye had passed, basically ended up saying, oh, that's it, forget it, it's all fine, it's not really an alien skull. But if you watch my video, it's a longer video than I do on TikToks, on my Patreon channel, you'll find out my thoughts on the Star Child. I was doing a live chat last night, and a numpty says, there's no such thing, you're lying, blah, blah, blah. And I was talking about Sumerian information, basically the Anunnaki. And so I sort of then said, hey, numpty, there is such a thing as all these tablets. And then this numpty said that they're basically fake. So I just thought I'd point out that there's a particular part on the BritishMuseum.org where you can actually type in collections. And if you type in, for example, the word Enki, which is an Anunnaki person, you will actually come up with their cylinder seals and where they're from, etc. And then you can look more into detail in them. Same goes for Murdoch, who was an Anunnaki as well. And so, in other words, the British Museum actually has the information that I'm talking about and that Zecharia Sitchin spoke about. So when someone says to me, they're not real, just go to the British Museum. This site here, 10 interesting facts about Egypt. Let's go through a few of them, and you know they're not going to be correct. 1, the Egyptians invented the 365-day calendar. Incorrect, because Book of Enoch, which predates this, talks about 365 days, and they create the henges, which you're probably familiar with, Stonehenge, and that is an actual calendar for 365 days, so that's wrong. Number 2, the world's oldest dress was found here. That's probably correct. That's only simply because it was the most well preserved. Doesn't mean there wasn't older dresses. 3, the Great Pyramid was not built by slaves. So you think, oh, brilliant, these people know what they're talking about. And then they end up going on about the paid labourers, which there were paid people well after the pyramids were built. But the pyramids were built just after the flood, when there was hardly any people around to even help the Anunnaki build them. So I'm just running out of time, but you get the idea. These sites just make me laugh. This is going to freak you out. I've been sent this picture of what I believe to be sort of an American Indian, native Indian. Forgive me if I say it wrong. Now, you've probably seen these type of pictures on TikTok where they show old photographs of things that, you know, paranormal or aliens or Bigfoots, etc., in these old type pictures. Well, this one is one that I've just been sent, and it is very freaky. However, I have to let you know, it was done using computer AI in about 4 seconds. So what I'm just, again, trying to say is those pictures that you see on TikTok, take with a pinch of salt, because we would have seen them originally years ago on YouTube, and we didn't. We only now see them because it's very easy to do this kind of thing on computer technology, AI. So just bear that in mind when you see all those pictures.